Okay, this is the start of the extraction of the 62 kilowatt hour battery from a wrecked Nissan Leaf that I bought through Copart. I don't have a fancy shot with the lift. What I do have is a bit of American ingenuity. The first thing I'm going to do is get this thing lifted up, and I'm going to show you where I'm going to put those jack stands. I'm going to get it high enough so I can get all the plastic panels off of the underneath. I take them all off because when I do my final jack stands, the places are covered by those plastic covers. I also like to clean the covers off while I have them out. Okay, this may be a bit tough to see, but right here, and there's also one to the rear, this is the front, and the other side of this is a good place to set the jack stands. It looks like this is reinforced, so that's where I put all four of mine. What I do is there's a place in the front on the subframe that I can get underneath to jack the front up, and there is a strong piece of metal that goes across the back axle that I put my other jack on. I do one at a time, kind of a seesaw deal, setting it on a jack stand in the front, going to the back, picking it up, putting the jack stands in, going back to the front. I do this in several operations so that the car doesn't fall over. This is going to be a bit tough to video. There's a spot in the middle of the subframe back here. I'm reaching my hand underneath, and it's about in the center of the car. I'll get my jack and I'll put it underneath there, and that's where I'm going to be jacking up the front end from. This is a shot from underneath of my 2013 Leaf. I can give you a good shot of what we're looking at. We're looking at this. It's a bit raised, and it is in the center of the subframe in the rear. Okay, we're going up. The front is up on the first stage of lifting. I've backed off on my green floor jack a little bit. Now I'm going to go to the rear. I'm going to grab a 4x4 to set on the other floor jack that I have. Okay, we're getting ready to lift the rear end. We're going across the heavy piece of metal that goes between the rear axles, and I have a 4x4 on top of my floor jack. Okay, we're all the way up on our two rear jacks. We'll go back to the front and we'll get those put to the last couple of notches and have those all the way up. Okay, at this point we've got it jacked up. That's not high enough to get the battery out, and those jack stands would be in the way, but it's good and secure so we can get all the plastic covers off and look around under there. Alright, I'm going to go underneath and start taking the panels, the plastic panels off. I'm going to start in the back. I got some 10 millimeter bolt heads, so the 10 millimeter socket is what I'll use. Some screwdrivers to take out the plastic fasteners. I have the extension because there's one of the bolts that is kind of deep and requires an extension to get to it. Here's an example of one of the fasteners. Let's see if I can do this blindly. So you pry up the center piece, and you got three places you can pry it once you get it up. That, and you can grab it Okay, now that we've got the rear plastic panel off, I'm going to show you where we're going to set the last jack stand. We're going to set it right behind the spring. This is a good solid area right here. And we're going to do that on both sides. And then we'll be able to get the jack stands that are out from the middle of the car. That'll give us plenty of room to get the battery out when we get to that point. Okay, we have all the panels off of the bottom. I've got 4 bags for each panel to keep the hardware separate. I put them in 4 different bags. I didn't take the front cover off. You don't really need to. I thought you did, but you don't. Next thing that we're going to do, I've already done it, is the doors have been closed for several minutes, otherwise you may get an error. Well, I understand. 10mm wrench. Loosen this. Take off the negative terminal. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go inside the car and pull the main plug on the battery. Okay, do as I say, not as I do. I've messed up a couple of these. The clips are in the rear on each side. If you go to the front and you pry under here, you'll break the tab off on the front. So lift on the back, lift this up and out, and you'll be okay. All right, we're going to have some 3 10mm bolts that we're going to have to take out here. Let me get my my ratchet. We'll have those out in a second. Okay, releasing these plugs can be a little tricky. I'm going to move the camera away so I can get in there. Basically, I have 2 small screwdrivers. I'm going to put them in each side. Okay, I've got them inserted. They're going to fly out when I start to pull here. All right. Those out of there. And let's see. Let me turn this off a minute and get this off. It's just a matter of manipulating this thing the right way and continuing to pull back and it'll come out. As my Finnish friend would say, voila. All right, now we are, let me turn this off, maybe we'll get a little bit better shot. All right, now we're safe to start working on the battery. You can get underneath and make some disconnections up there. It turned out, by the way, that what I needed to do is pull back on this to release a second release to get it to rotate up the rest of the way so that it would come out. Okay, here's the cables. There's 3 of them. This is the control cable, this is the power cable, and this is the battery heater cable. This one is pretty straightforward. Twist and pull. This next one is not self-evident. We'll do this. We'll push this blue tab up, and there's a push tab here. There may be one somewhere else. Let me push on this and see if I can work this back. All right, I failed to do one thing. Ahead of the power cable, there is a bracket, and you actually need to take this bracket loose so that you're able to bring this whole cable assembly back. So I'll do that. I'll undo that, and I'll get back with you. All right, don't be too concerned with this guy, but this guy over here, you got to push in, and then this, it's like a sheath that comes up, and you're good to go. Thick. Anyway, this guy is the key over here. Once you put this up, and you want to get this sheath back, you got to push in on that, wiggle it a little bit, and it'll come. All right, I have a little pointy thing. I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to pull that forward. And let's see what happens. Okay, once you get this green thing pried up, then you're going to push on this piece right here. That's going to be your release, and then you can go ahead and pull this out. It's a little bit tricky. Get that green piece out of the way and push in and pull. All right, you see this area right here? Looks like a rectangular welded bead. That's where I'm going to finally put my front jack stands to hold this thing up. I'll show you when I'm done how they look. Okay, I've got some extra long jack stands that I probably got in the 70s from Kmart. Those are what's going to go in the back. They are fully extended. All right, this is how it looks in the back. And you can see the front. I think I already got a shot of that, where those are. I'll keep the floor jacks under when I'm not in those areas, just as an extra safety measure. This battery is about 40 millimeters taller. So when I actually do get it down on the dollies that I'm going to take it down to, if I can't get it from underneath the car, then I'll put the jack on the back end and jack it up high enough so that I can clear the car with it, and then I'll set it back down on the jacks. All right, there's 18 bolts that hold the battery up. There are 4 bolts in the back on a bracket that have 16 millimeter heads. Go ahead and take those out. Move to the front, to the forward. Those are, everything else is 18 millimeter heads. Take these out. On this side, take and loosen these. First start off with the breaker bar and break all of these bolts loose. Take these about 3/8, not quite to a 1/2 inch down. Do the same with this side. And then remove these 2 bolts, this bolt, and this bolt. As you take these down, the clearance from with these bolts will disappear, and the battery will come down far enough for what's going to be our next step, which is to put in some lowering studs. Also in the front there's a couple of ground straps that you'll need a 10 millimeter wrench or socket. Take it loose from the battery, loosen it from the chassis, swing it around out of the way, tighten it back up so it'll be out of the way. Do that with both of them. These are the tools that you'll need: a breaker bar, 3/8 drive, couple 3/8 drive sockets, a 16 and an 18, small extension, and a ratchet. The bolts, once you get them broke in, At least on mine, they came out fairly easy. These are by jacking screws, studs, whatever you want to call them. I ordered some all thread and I cut them down to size. You can see this is turned down on the front. It's just like the bolts are. You need that so that it threads easy. So that's the same dimension as you have on the bolts. If you don't do that, it's really hard to get them started. And I have a jam nut. Each one of the assemblies has a jam nut. A couple of, I believe these are 1/2-inch washers, and a flange nut. What I'm going to do is take off the jam nut. I'm going to put it where inside the clearance between the battery and the chassis, and then I'm going to stick the jacking screw up between it. I'm going to get the nut started, and I'm going to hold the nut while I screw the screw into the chassis. I'll screw it in about 1/2 inch, and then I will tighten the jam nut. And I'll do that. I'm going to do that. I'll put one here, one here, one here, and one here. That's what we're going to be jacking it down with. All right, this is what it's going to look like. I'll be able to bring this up. I'll do the other 4 corners, and then I can take the remaining bolts out and I can start lowering it on these shafts. All 4 studs are in, and I've got some special tools that I'm going to get out, and I'm going to remove the remaining 6 bolts that are in the middle. I'll do that off of video. I'll get my special tools down. I'll put some dollies underneath this, and we'll start jacking this thing down. These are through-hole socket sets. I bought these at Harbor Freight. You might want to buy something that's a little higher quality, but these will go all the way up the shaft. I have pieces of foam that I put some holes in, and they will go up on the shaft and hold the individual ratchets in place, and they'll be pushed down as the nut comes down. I haven't figured out a good way for going up yet, but I will. I'll show you what this looks like after I have one all set up. Okay, this is what it looks like. As I ratchet this down, this holds the ratchet up. The flange nut comes down and the battery comes down. Okay, it's out. All the jacking screws have been pulled out, and it is ready to be pushed out. It looks like the back end is not going to clear, so I'll temporarily jack up the back end before I start to push out the battery. And there it is. First time I'm actually able to confirm that it is a 62 kilowatt-hour battery. I am happy. When Nissan put the 62 kilowatt-hour battery, or got it going, it was about 40 millimeters higher. So one of the things they did to make it fit is this is the original leaf, and this being an S plus, this rail all the way along here was added, and here's the original leaf channel. This is on both sides. So these have 4 places that have threaded and welded nuts in place. So that is how they got that portion of it 40 millimeters lower. On the front areas, they took on the battery and raised those so that those would be the 40 millimeters. And on the very back where it's connected, here they also made it fit by what they did with the battery. What we're going to do is this rail has got 4 bolt holes on it. See if I can show you one of them right there. And right there. Okay, and they all don't line up with the original configuration of the earlier leafs. So the front one does, the other 3 don't. What we're going to do is the original leaf had 3 bolts for support. The 62 has 5. We're going to put it back to 3, and to do that, the middle bolt we're actually going to make up an adapter plate, and we're going to bolt that to the original frame. And for the front bolt we're going to use a spacer, and for the rear bolt we're okay because of the way the battery is configured. Here's a picture of some unistrut that I've cut and put a couple holes in to match the holes in the frame. It is 1 5/8 inch unistrut. I've marked the locations of where the spring nuts. I'm going to use half inch spring nuts. And this is a drawing of what I'm doing. Okay, this is what the unistrut looks like when it's in place. Let's see. And the other side. The front stud is in it for alignment. Bolt is in the back end. There's going to be a bolt that goes all the way through it to the bottom of the battery on the other side. That stud is going to come out. This is going to be the cooling system when needed. We've got some dripper hose, and we're going to drip water onto these microfiber towels. And anybody that's lived out in the desert knows that because the humidity is really low, that you can get a lot of cooling done. So we're going to cool the top of the case and hope that transfers and pulls out enough to keep our battery safe. Spring nut. Spring nut in unistrut. All right, here's a part that's on the 2019. It supports the plastic panel underneath. You're going to have to take this off of your 2019 when you do your battery on your 2013 like we're doing now. This is one of the advantages of buying the whole car, is you find this stuff out and you have access to all the hardware that you're going to need. Alright, we got all the jacking studs in place. Let me show you that. That's the very rear. Work our way up to the front. This is the front corner. And this one goes all the way through to the frame. Of course, we're going to take that out when we're done, and we're going to put a long bolt all the way through there. And it is the same on the other side. And there's our dollies. It's going to be pulling off that pretty quick. That's it. After the battery was put in place, this bracket right here and the one over on the other side, the holes did not line up. I'm going to go back and look at the 2019 and see if I can exchange those. Okay, here's all of the rear battery supports out. You can see that the one's for the 62 kilowatt hour battery from the 2019. Leaf S Plus are longer, so we'll be putting those on the 2013. You're gonna need those if you make the swap. Well, the bolts are in, so now we're going to go back up to the front and we're going to connect in all the cables. So we'll finish up on this ground strap. We'll also tie the two ground straps back in the front. Alright, I'm going to start pushing these back in. It's very important when you're done pushing this guy in that the green deal gets pushed up. There's interlocks, and if these don't get pushed all the way forward and these pushed in, the interlock will not work. This is a little trick on this. As you push it in, the sheath goes down, and then this blue button, I believe it also goes down, if I remember correctly. This guy's the simplest. You find out to where it starts to push in a little bit, and then twist the collar, and it pulls it in the rest of the way. Okay, here's a final look. Right here we're clipped in. Here we've pulled this down and it is clipped in. That's what that looks like. And this green guy is pushed down. So this ought to be good. Okay, the battery's in. Now we have to put this guy in. This is the translator, so that the car and the battery can talk together. I've already programmed it. It's programmed for a 62 kilowatt hour battery, so it's ready to go. I'm going to prepare it and wire it in. I packed all my Cambridge wiring in this lower area rather than in the fuse area. I found it a little bit more convenient. Also, a difference I make is I like using the knife type blade connectors, and I like slipping some plastic over those. Here's an example. Tuck all that in, and I am ready to try this out. Still have to hook up the main battery plug in the back seat, and I'll be ready to give it a try. Alright, this is a bit dark, but I'm going to be putting this back in. It goes down and flips back. Yeah, I hit it backwards. I turned it around and it went right in and snapped right in place. Alright, now we're going to connect up the battery. Okay, we're on. That should be sufficient for a start. I got a key fob in my pocket. I think it's the right one. Okay, that was kind of odd. We do have some errors. So it looks like we'll have to get Leaf Spy and see what's going on here. But that being said, let me try here. All right, we can go in neutral. We can't do anything else. All right, so we're going to have to clear some faults and see what goes on here. Back to park and off. Off. All right, it doesn't want to go off. Part of the problem actually could be the battery. The battery could be low, the 12 volt. Let's see. There we go. All right. Okay, after changing over to my second 3-port CAN bus that I bought two. I programmed them both the same. I booted up the first time and I couldn't believe it. Everything came up as it should. So this is the second boot. Foot on the brake. Uh-oh. I don't know what's going on, but my button's not illuminated. Looks like it's going to start anyway. Wow, look at that. 96 miles and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars. By the time I get up to 12 bars, that should be over 200 miles. Right now I'm kind of happy. I'm taking a deep breath because I was really in it deep. I still was showing about 24 error codes. I'm going to go back on Leaf Spy and check and see what I have left and get those cleared, and I'll finish up the work I need to do. I got covers to go on the bottom. I got rear coil springs to change, so I still got another day's worth of work.